My goal would be really to end street homelessness. To end street homelessness. There'll still be people in shelters and...
We have this hotel room for you. Go into that shelter and don't be publicly visible.
Say, oh, they're just cleaning up this place because all those fancy leaders are coming into town. That's true, because it's true.
The devil sets it in your head that, like, you know what, nobody wants you. Nobody wants you at their house. Nobody wants to give you a place to stay. Nobody loves you, and look at you're in a shelter. Nobody loves you, and look at you're in a shelter.
Today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps.
Newsom hired like his own photographer to travel around with him, like this like Hollywood-based photographer. So that's our taxpayer dollars paying for this.
Nobody who is close to being rational would do anything like what we in Los Angeles have been doing now for close to 40 years.
The blatant thievery.
Welcome to Swept Away LA, where we bring you the untold truths of the care crisis in Los Angeles.
We're here to shed light on the harsh realities of LA's homelessness crisis, because in the city full of stars, we can't afford to let these stories fade into the background.
We're diving deep into the issues, the policies, and the people on the front lines. The truth is here to stay, and so are we.
Stick with us as we challenge the status quo, spark real conversations, and work towards lasting solutions, because this is a crisis we can't afford to sweep under the rug.
I'm your host, NIka Soon-shiong, and I'm joined by my co-host, Ysenia.
And this is Swept Away LA. Hello, how's it going? And welcome back to Swept Away LA. I wanted to give you guys a little insight into today's episode. It was recorded before the November 2024 election, so any conversations about ballot measures that may be out of date, please disregard and enjoy the conversation. This is a great episode here with you guys with Vanessa Ramos, so please enjoy. Take it away, NIka.
Hi, this is NIka Soon-shiong. You're listening to Swept Away LA. We're here today with my first guest, Vanessa Ramos from Disability Rights California. Vanessa's going to lay out campaigns against forced treatment in LA, including the fight against quote-unquote care court, the dangers of conservatorship, stripping people's freedom, and the push against forced institutionalization. She's also going to speak to how this all relates to our approach to addressing the housing crisis. Vanessa is a passionate advocate for disability rights and a leader in the movement to protect individual autonomy. Thank you so much for joining us, Vanessa.
It's my pleasure, NIka. Thank you so much for having me.
So can you start by sharing a little bit, what is Disability Rights California? What is your journey to being such a staunch advocate for these kinds of issues?
Sure. What a great question. You know, my why, NIka, really lives in, my navigation of our carceral system at a very young age. The opportunity at Disability Rights California arose after I spent some time working in government. You know, in the beginning, I thought that like my mob days were over and I got clean, life was good. I wanted to be, proud to be an American. I want to work at the local county. And in working in the county, all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, why are we spending so much money on all this other stuff? Wait a minute. I started paying attention to the numbers. I couldn't do it anymore, watching how money was being misspent, tracking it, working with people who encouraged me to stay on the right side of history. But the more money I was making and the more I was watching and thinking about my pension, I realized that I was slowly becoming a thief. I was robbing my own people, and I ethically could no longer do that. Being at the county, I then started to experience the disabling impacts of my own disabilities, and I knew that it was time for me to go. At the same time, I was doing my homework, and I found that Disability Rights California is California's protection and advocacy agency. So each state in our once republic is state and federally mandated to have a protection and advocacy agency. This started because of the investigation by Geraldo Rivera back in the 70s of Willowbrook Hospital. And NIka, it's one of the reasons why I'm so proud to be here with you, because I see you in that same light. May we all hold a part of Geraldo Rivera and his courageous investigative reporting, his reporting to expose what's going on, which is sometimes going against the grain. But luckily, we both have personal power and personal agency, so we get to do whatever the fuck we want to do around here. And that's tell the truth.
Snaps to that. Can you tell us a little bit about what's your role at Disability Rights California? And then I'd love to get into what are some things you're exposing?
Yeah, for sure. So my role at Disability Rights California is in the investigations unit. Investigations unit's focus is really to zero in on extreme abuse and neglect. And I help advise our unit. I work alongside amazing investigators, attorneys. We have a managing attorney. We have our director who leads other units. And my role is really to help the puzzle pieces together. I hope, NIka, shameless plug, but we do have a report coming out soon on college hospitals for widows. And once we release that report, I'd love to have a few of my colleagues on your show to really unbunk and demystify what goes on in some of the facilities, right, that are soon to be expanded through things like Care Court, through a lot of these mandates that I know you want to get to a little later on.
Yeah, I'd love to start there. You know, what is Care Court? How do we understand its goals and the way it's expanding?
Our governor put forth Care Court with Susan Eggman of Stockton and Umberg, I believe of Santa Ana, and these two electeds worked in silo with a small group of family members to put forth a program that was sold to the community as a program that will help house people, will help provide treatment services for some of our most severely ill. One of the issues that we instantly saw and we found was that, one, the current system isn't being improved. Two, when you start new programs, you undermine what's currently happening. Three, the people that are being expedited to the front of the line in Care Court are robbing the opportunity for those currently receiving services. So we saw dangers all around. When we started looking into the bill language, we found that there were several points of confusion, such as, how are you going to say that Care Court comes with housing when housing isn't being funded through Care Court? How do you, right? So like we started looking and it was like, oh, they're talking about a referral to housing. Then we started looking even closer. So you mean to tell me that someone who is quote unquote severely mentally ill is going to be able to get on the bus, go down to Norwalk or wherever the court is, keep that appointment, come back a few more times, wait in line for an outpatient appointment? It just doesn't make sense.
So what is Care Court funding? If it's not funding housing or services, but you know, it's sort of referral, what does that mean? Who's getting the money?
So the courts are getting the money because one of the things that we find in Care Court is that most of the money in Care Court is actually going to build out the court system. So when we think a court system, we think judge, we think everybody, right? The person who picks up the phone. There's a lot that goes into creating a new court system. So a lot of the money went into the actual courts. The few dollars that were left over are going to outpatient services, intensive outpatient services. Many families are now coming out and saying, hey, we really backed you up for Care Court, Governor. Hey, we really wanted this to work. But they're finding that their family members aren't accessing those services because there are things like staff shortages, right? I'm an example. I'm a government employee that said I physically, mentally, spiritually cannot do this, right? So I walked away from the pension. I walked away from that, and I'm not alone. There's a lot of people who are overworked, right? Like their caseloads are so long. So we already have a staffing issue. So it's not like you say, hey, we're going to fund this intensive outpatient program and then sprinkle water on it, right? Sprinkle tax dollars on it, right? And then all of a sudden you get staff, you get a court, you get a process. Like if it was that simple, we would have already done it. And that's what we're seeing out of our governor. He needed talking points, and that's being backed up by our mayor, right? Karen Bass, who has publicly, proudly, she literally says, we will clean up LA in time for the Olympics. And, Mayor, what do you mean by that? Who is getting cleaned up? How are you cleaning people up? Oh yeah, the Olympics, right? Oh yeah, the World Cup. It's like you're taking community out of that.
And I think
process.
That's a really important example, especially as we think about the role that these massive events like the Olympics has played in terms of major cities sweeping away the unhoused community just to get people out of sight, out of mind in time for the cameras. So we have 4 years until the Olympics. And how do we think about the specter of that possibility in LA as we right now are trying to figure out where's the care in the care court? How do we think about Prop 1, Prop 36, all of these ballot measures and fights that we're in right now, keeping in mind what's going to happen in 4 years? How do you relate between?
So I call upon us this November, right, to be bold, right? Vote with what we think is correct. And Proposition 36 becomes very problematic because currently Proposition 47 funds a lot of different programs.
Where's the care in the care court?
Right.
And how can we understand these? You're describing a lot of investments in things that are masquerading as services, but when you look closer, the services aren't being funded.
Yeah, thank you. And, NIka, one thing I will say is that our state, our republic, right, whether you like the U.S. or not, guess what? People migrate here for a reason. Let's just call that out. My little niece just migrated over from Honduras, Central America. Her little ass swam in that river and made it. And you know what she was wearing? A USA shirt. And I say that because we are at a time in our nation where we become very anti-America, but we're still here. And when I look at who is most anti-America, it's us who have been raised here, who we have the power to speak up and to say this and to say that. And I call upon each other for us to raise up Los Angeles, right? Let's raise it up, not by ideology, but by principle, by what works. So what I'm speaking to is that whether it's Proposition 47, Proposition 36, Proposition 1, Care Court, SB 43, all these different bills, there's too many bills. So at some point, we have to stop exhausting our communities who are tired, because let's be real, who reads through that voter guide and understands what the fuck it says? I was looking through it, and here's the deal. Some of these propositions are so funny, like with Prop 36, get the fuck out of here. You mean to tell me that Proposition 36 is going to stop theft? It's going to increase housing. It's going to, help get the drug traffickers off the street, the drug users. What else is it going to do? Like, that's what they said about Care Court. They said Care Court, right? It's going to fix housing, mental illness, substance use, all this stuff. It's like, if it was that easy, then why haven't we done it, right? But we know that they are blatantly using words, right? And the fan bases are nodding their heads. We're seeing Trump and Harris all over, on these signs. And it's like, do you even know what these people are standing for? Right? And if we think, I just got back from Japan, and if we think in the U.S. that magically people just decided one day to wake up, be houseless, and having visual signs of the disabling impacts of extreme poverty, then get out of here. Because I travel the world, and as a world traveler, let me tell you, the rest of the world ain't looking like this. And that's why we need to clean up for the Olympics. That's why they're doing it. We go into other nations, we fund wars, we kill children, right? We have the biggest PR firm. It's called Hollywood, right? People watch our movies, and then they're going to come here and walk over human shit. People should be fucking ashamed of themselves.
I think one of the themes from what you're hearing, which resonates so much, is the role that these narratives play. So it's easier to talk on a bill or on a ballot measure that this will fund housing, that people will be housed, and then leave the system the same. And I'd love to hear about your expertise as somebody who represents the disabled community in accessing services.
Yeah.
What does that look like? What are some of the real barriers that don't make their way into the narratives?
One of the things you know so much about, right? The universal basic income. Do you know it takes more money to gatekeep and to catch the safety social net thieves? It's like the government is the biggest thief. They're the hamburglar, right? They're the one burglarizing people's tax dollars because the government is accountable to no one. The government runs on taxpayer dollar. So it's not like if you're a private business, right? It's not if you're a business where if you start mismanaging the money and there's no return on investments, guess what? You're going to get fired, honey. You're going to go home. Bye. Right? That doesn't happen with the government. So one of the things I want to highlight on why I wanted to come to your show, and I was like, yeah, absolutely, is because you understand that people need money. That's what people need. I don't need someone to tell me how to spend my money. And you know what? And if I do, shout out to AI. I know there's a bunch of AI haters, but guess what? I be on ChatGPT Perplexity talking about, help me do $100 Trader Joe's list, and that shit's fast. So if I need help, right, on how to spend my money, I'm not gonna go to some paper pusher who's just looking forward to a pension, right, to help me. I don't need that. You know what I do need? I need people like you to help me, and I need to help you. We need to help each other. One of the things that I'll also say, once we dip out of these systems, it doesn't mean that there is no social safety net. Because what I want to open people's minds up to is I don't need the government to take my tax dollars to misuse or, to give to whoever they decide. I can manage giving people money. I can love thy neighbor, right? Like, you're not asking people for permission to do this. I'm not asking for people's permission to do this. Do I work for Disability Rights California? Yes. Does everyone in the organization that I work for believe the way that I believe? Maybe not. But does our executive director, Andy Imperato, stand by his staff? Yes, he does. Does he say, you know what, you guys do you? Yeah, why? Because he knows that we're working with the people, right? So this is not just I'm at home thinking of these things. This is what's going on.
Absolutely. And I think really one of the things that I'd love to have your insight on is working with people, trying to dispel these narratives, sweep misspent funds under the rug and sweep people away. How do we get a better understanding of really what the experience is like of trying to access a service, trying to get housed? Where do you go? And what I really love what you said, that there's so many people and systems geared towards making sure that low-income folks are not misspending a few extra dollars here or there. What is that experience for people if they're...
It's awful, it's really awful. It's painful to watch, it's really painful to watch. It fires me up. It's why I do yoga. It's why I teach with the Prison Yoga Project. Services rarely meet people's needs. There's a lot of power in media. There's a lot of, rogue journalism, forgetting the ethics on non-biased ways of reporting. There's a lot of taking pictures at their worst moment. Right? My dear friend Lex, shout out to Lex and Carolina Valle and MJ and Hum and so many people, right? John Rafling, right? The Human Rights Watch, Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, All People's Health Collective. It's one of the things that we often notice is people are being filmed on their worst day. And when you have a house, you fight, you fuck. Right? You have a messy home. You clean the home, right? But when you're living outdoors, those walls aren't there. So everything you do, everybody's watching. Everyone's watching. So even if you don't start with a mental health disability, right, you're going to end up, right, having symptoms because you are being publicly broadcasted. People are walking down the street and making faces at you, right? And I know from my own lived experience navigating drug use that it's one thing to go out cute on Friday night, right? Looking like, hey, you know, and then rolling around, you know, Skid Row, MacArthur Park on Monday morning looking like who did it and how come. And let me tell you, the experiences that I've had hoeing as an escort are very different than the experiences that I've had nickel and diming it. And I don't say that to make a mockery out of myself, right? Because recovery has made an honest woman out of me, but I can't forget where the fuck I come from. And let me tell you that back in my day with the original Proposition 36, that was a diversion program, I was able to access drug treatment services where I was able to go to Tarzana treatment centers. They gave me the option of 6 to 9 months of inpatient treatment. Then you get access to transitional housing. Then you go to outpatient, right? During my stay at Tarzana Treatment Center, I was afforded the opportunity to experience and navigate my grief. They were able to put me in contact with the resources that I needed that take time. Due to a recent change in the Medi-Cal delivery system, the organized delivery system, drug treatment is now 30 days long. Dude, get the fuck out of here. 30 days? You basically, the treatment centers then have to, like the caseworkers, then have to tell Medi-Cal and their billing, like, hey, such and such really would benefit for an extra 30 days. So they'll extend it up to 90 days. And the issue with that is that, and I know this because I was a drug counselor before, is when you treatment plan and you're looking at someone and you're meeting someone and you're drafting out like a treatment plan with that person and you have 6 months, you could start think with that person like, all right, month 1, let's get you detox, like get you right, take your medical appointments. Month 2, let's talk about family issues, start to introduce family, right? 3, right? Like, it's like you go step by step. But if I would have to start treatment planning for 30 days, I mean, some people are just coming down. It took me a long time, right, to get down, you know. Drugs are here. They're gonna be here. And let's help people not die. They're already using drugs. Like, let's stop.
And I really think what you're sharing brings up the way in which so many policies are more inclined to further criminalize people and to reduce the chances of somebody getting well and being healthy. So as you think about your lived experience, which thank you so much for sharing, and I feel like you're such a testament to somebody who has really looked at these systems and not just looked at them from afar, but lived in them, both from all angles. When you think about what a better, more inclusive, more adequate safety net looks like, what would it take in an ideal world to address the housing crisis, to address the service delivery crisis in LA County? Paint a picture for me.
Sure. You know, I would start by diverting funds from the Los Angeles Police Department to go into mobile crisis units that are truly mobile crisis units. Currently, we have this issue that's coming up throughout many cities in California where mayors are handpicking certain nonprofits to deliver systems. But because they know that they're being handpicked, they start to take the form of government, right? So they start to demonize and mistreat the same people that they've been entrusted to serve. What that looks like is people with lived experience being hired, walking through the streets, looking at someone who's unhoused and talking down to them. That is not mobile crisis services. That is not engagement. Like, if you are a mobile crisis worker and that's how you're working, please take time to care for yourself. Know that you matter, right? Know that you may be being used as a token, right? Know that you have the power to change things. And I trust that you got into your work for all the right reasons. Don't allow them to harden your heart, right? Look within, get some help. So mobile crisis units, when I've spoken to police, many police officers say, look, girl, like, Vanessa, I I wanted to be a police officer because, when I was a kid, it was Halloween, man, I dressed up like a police officer, and then I went to school, got into the ROTC program, put on the outfit, and I wanted a way out, right? And that's why I became a police officer. And some people tell me, but while on the force, I've been asked to deal and handle mental health crisis calls with the police training that I have. And the training that I have in its nature, by its creation, was never intended, right, to be the catch-all for all people. So I would start with the legalization of drugs. I would start with mobile crisis. I would cut down the government by a lot. I would put a stop to all these bills. Next year, and come back at us in a couple years. You know what I mean? I would have a max, because electeds start off good and then something dirty happens. And we're seeing that, right? So, a call to action, I'm sorry to go there with it, but I'm not sorry to go there with it. Like, stop lying to people and let's start protecting people through educating them and through telling the truth. So we understand that there's big money in the Olympics. Tell people that.
And in the meantime, as we are struggling to make voices heard and to have the practical and very pragmatic problems that people face in trying to access services, as we're hearing all this lip service being paid, what are some things that you wish people understood about accessibility to services?
If you are entrusted with developing a solution, people from that community should be present on day one. What happens is that decisions are made, programs are built, then programmatic meetings happen. So they start calling the 10 disabled people that they know, and they create an advisory group after the fact, right? They feed us sandwiches, give us some chips, they sit us in a room, they have the paper out, they ask questions, right? We feel real good about ourselves, we take a picture, we leave, and they go home and they laugh their way to the bank, right? And what ends up happening is that the person needing services misses out. Accessibility doesn't cost more when done right, because if you include people at the beginning, an accessible world is a kinder world for all, right? So you don't need ramps just for our friends that are wheelchair users or people who are blind, low vision, who may use a walking cane, right? We know that ramps are really helpful for moms that are pushing their strollers, right? For older people, for all the people, right? Like if you're carrying growth, right? It makes for a softer kind of world. But that comes after a legal fight, right? So I want to get back to the website piece, because oftentimes for some of my friends who are blind, low vision, they use screen readers. And when a website isn't done in an accessible fashion, what happens is the website is built and then they beta test it, but not appropriately, right? Because they're not catching the things that come naturally to the user. So there are times where people will use an image of text and put that on a housing website. So if you're using a screen reader, your screen reader won't pick up those words. Another thing is, I don't know if you've tried to create an account, but it's very difficult to create a basic housing account to log on for your place in line for services. But some of these portals ask you for things like phone numbers. Well, if you are extremely poor, if you are out on the street, if you're having a hard time, keeping the same number may not be as easy. It may not be as accessible. You may have to go through a couple phones, right? You may not have your phone charged at all time, right? The data on some of these government phones are wonky, so they have cheaply made phones, right? So people could download an app and all of a sudden there's no more app space on that phone, but they need that phone to submit the application, but they can't, right? And because they're asking you for an email address, make a password, it has to have special characters, right? Then you have to create an email account, then you have to go to the email account because you have to verify the account, then you got to do this. Man, you're tired, dude. And then the police are sweeping up all your stuff, and the bogus ass governor, his thieving ass, hiring, I don't know if y'all know, but Newsom hired like his own photographer to travel around with him, like this like Hollywood-based photographer. So that's our taxpayer dollars paying for this. The blatant thievery and how...
That's such a theme.
Yeah.
It's such a clear theme. And I think I've often thought when we think about welfare fraud being somebody stealing money that is allocated for low-income families. We often think about a low-income person, but we never associate companies, elected officials, departments as welfare frauds. That's the welfare fraud. And if we need CCTV cameras, we don't need them on the streets or in Walgreens. We need them in government offices.
That's right, Nika. That's, I mean, like you said earlier, girl, snaps of that. Yeah. In real time right now, what do people need? In real time. And in real time, people need access to services. And because the government continues to fail, right, to provide us those services, we need to take matters into our own hands, and we need to give people money. Give people money and watch them thrive.
I can think of no better closing than that. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your energy. And everybody, we are excited for continuing the conversation.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all for listening. That was such a wonderful episode. And just like Vanessa Ramos said, direct cash is what saves lives. Direct cash in the hands of those who need it, those who know exactly what to do with it, exactly how it will best benefit them, is the way to help people, is the most efficient way to help people. So policymakers, think about that one. Guaranteed income. Well, I hope you all have a great week and stay informed. Take care.